Are we going?
Yep.
Okay. I am floored by this turnout. My name is John Leonard. I'm the president of the Hampton Bays Alliance. I want to thank you all for coming here today. Oh, if you've read the papers recently, you don't know how much I needed that. I apologize that we don't have enough seats. We're going to try and get through tonight's program as best we can under the circumstances. As you all know, please silence your phones. As you know, there's some refreshments over in the corner over there. I hope everybody's had an opportunity to take a look at the wonderful renderings that are on both sides of the room to see what we're talking about today. Okay, so welcome to the August 14, 2024 meeting of the Hampton Bays Alliance. With me tonight are board members Christine Taylor, Maria Holtz, right here. We have Helen Burgess over there, and Stephanie Jocelyn, right there. I'm going to tell you why we started this organization. The Hampton Bays Alliance is a non-profit civic organization founded to provide a civil and respectful space for members of the Hampton Bays community to learn about the various public and private community development projects affecting our hamlet, to exchange and develop ideas regarding the revitalization and conservation of Hampton Bays, and to promote policies and improvements that will benefit members of our hamlet's residential and business communities for generations to come. Our founding principles are inclusivity, civility, and progress. We have some ground rules. We have to respect everyone in the room, no matter who they are, no matter what they say. There's no yelling, shouting, or disruption, no calling out of questions. Our mic can't pick up your questions. We're recording right now. I want to mention why we're recording. We upload all of our meetings to YouTube. We have a YouTube channel, so please check us out on YouTube. Check us out on the web at hamptonbaysalliance.com, where you'll find our videos for all of our meetings, as well as a talk that I gave during a Parish Art Museum presentation called The Art of Community, where I discussed why it was that we started this organization. Here today we forget the past. We're not going to talk about other projects we didn't like, other developments 10 years ago we thought were horrible. We're looking into the future. The future is all that matters to us here, not the past. And we're going to keep our discussions relevant. Future programming. We've got a nice program coming up on September 11th. It's going to be called Understanding Affordable and Fair Housing with the Town of Southampton Housing Authority. We're going to have Executive Director Curtis Highsmith here. We're also going to have the Housing Authority Commissioner, Andrea Klausner. So it should be a very interesting discussion. You know, we talk a lot about affordable housing and workforce housing and fair housing, but we don't really know exactly what that means. The purpose of this organization, and you'll notice from the other programs that we've had, have really been about education, because I find that, myself included, we have a very limited knowledge of how town government works. And I think it's best when the community knows how the town government works and to figure out ways to make it work best for them. So we've had conversations about the planning process. We recently had conversation about how much any of this revitalization and redevelopment would actually cost to the taxpayer in Hampton Bays. And we had our first meeting was about where we are and where we're headed in terms of Hampton Bays revitalization and redevelopment. A few announcements. So I'd like you to make sure to sign in, especially if you were here last time. We had a little kerfuffle with the sign-in sheets. So please make sure we have your name and at least an email address so we can send out information to you about what we're doing, what we're up to, and what's coming down the pipe. We gave you question and comment cards. The way that we work our meeting is that we don't put up a microphone and just let everybody go on and on for 30 minutes. So you have a question and comment card, and we also gave you a pen, so you don't have an excuse that you didn't come with a pen to the first day of school. So write down your questions and comments. We're going to collect them at some point during the discussion, and then we're going to answer them. And we'd like to know, please, there's a contact part of it too, so let us know who it is so we know whose wonderful questions we're answering. And there's also at the front desk membership forms. We really encourage you to join us. This is a movement. If you want to see something happening, if you want to see progress in the hamlet of Hampton Bays, we all know how this project, or this kind of project, has been mired in debate, conversation, litigation. If you want to move forward, join us. Join us, become part of the discussion, and let's make some progress. A few personal announcements. So, recently, a member of the Hampton Bays Civic Association attempted to shut down this meeting by letter to the Board of Trustees of the library. And without going into exactly the details, we prevailed. I want to shout out to the Board of Trustees and to the Hampton Bays Public Library for being a champion of public discourse, free communication, education of the community in which it operates, and a champion of free speech. So thank you, Hampton Bays Library. Thank you to the Board of Trustees. Also, another member of the Board of Directors, well, the same member of the Board of Directors of the Hampton Bays Civic Association, as many of you know or should know, I am a member of the board of the Town of Southampton Zoning Board of Appeals. Many objections have been raised to my being part of this organization as a conflict of interest, causing the public to distrust government institutions. And so what did I do? We have an ethics board in the town of Southampton. I submitted a request for an advisory opinion with regard to my participation in these proceedings. And as of yesterday, I received a positive advisory opinion stating that there is absolutely no conflict of interest and there is no reason why I cannot do the community work that I'm doing here and also work on this zoning board of appeals. So we're 2 for 2. Keep going. Keep trying. Keep trying. They keep trying. Finally, we have been, I don't know if any of you know, there's been a lot of discussion about this thing called the Pattern Book, the Hampton Bays Pattern Book. The Pattern Book is a guideline that would become part of the town's comprehensive plan and was envisioned to provide architectural guidelines for any developer developing new buildings, which would require them to comport with 4 different architectural styles, things that keep new buildings in the same character as what we have before. That has been mired in quite a number of public hearings. There have been zoning elements added into it. Everybody came out and said there should be no zoning elements. If you're interested in that, please write to us at info@hamptonbaysalliance.com. We'll get you up to speed. There's going to be another hearing on the pattern book on August 27th, 2024 at 6 p.m. in front of the town of Southampton, in front of the town council. And I encourage people to get involved, get informed, and learn about what that has to do, because really the point of that is to preserve the character of our community. It benefits our community, and I don't see any reason why we should be opposing its introduction. Yes, Ms. Bonfredi?
John, will that be on Zoom?
Yes, so all of the town board meetings, all public hearings are on Zoom, and there's a link on the town board website. And what I will do is I will take that link and I will put it in an email to everybody and mail it out to you this coming week. Okay, and with that, we can start our meeting. So today we are here to meet with Alfred Caiola. Alfred Caiola is the landowner who is at the epicenter of all of the revitalization and redevelopment initiatives in the hamlet of Hampton Bays. He is our neighbor, he lives here, and he is here to talk to us about what his ideas are, and for us to talk to him about how we feel about it. Because really, the conversation has been monopolized by a small group within our community that is against any kind of development. And I think that the best way for us to figure out exactly what it is we want is to come together and to discuss it. Now, the Alliance doesn't take any specific position with regard to any particular plan. Well, first of all, there is no plan in place. That's something that we have to understand at the get-go. We don't take any position. The position that we are taking is the fundamental position that we need to see revitalization and redevelopment of Hampton Bays in our lifetime. If it happens in my lifetime, I will feel lucky. But we don't take any position with regard to any particular plan. We just felt like the conversation was so taken over by one side of the debate that really people didn't get an opportunity to become part of the clearinghouse of ideas. So we want to kind of hear what you guys have to think too. Because together we'll move forward. We're not going to move forward by kowtowing to one group. We have to come together, say what we want, and make it happen. So let's start a conversation. So, Mr. Caiola. Now he's on the spot.
I wore my black shirt, by the way, to live up to some of it.
So it won't show the blood? No. Okay, so, Alfred, why don't you talk to people about a little bit about your personal history, your connection to our hamlet, and let us get to know you a little bit better.
Sure, I appreciate that. First, I just want to thank you for creating a completely novel and different format than anything I've experienced or have seen. And so that's wonderful. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So many people here I know, and many I've never seen, and just wish that we lived in a town where you could meet people on a daily basis and be out and about and have a place to interact. So that's really what spurred the beginning of my desire to do something. Going back a ways, my first experience in Hampton Bays was at 9 or 10 at my uncle's house down on Lynn Avenue where the zoo was. And I'd come out and visit and spend the whole summers with them. And over the years, we decided, hey, I want to live here. I've been here almost every summer, back and forth. So in 2004, we bought a property, developed it, and have loved it ever since. But I always felt that Hampton Bays, while probably the most beautiful waterfront community, so underutilized in so many ways, but has some special spots and could have so many more, just never had that downtown. And I'd have people, you're in the Hamptons, where? Oh, Hampton Bays, like they just didn't get it, and I'm like, no, it's gorgeous, I'd come here, I'd love it. But yeah, if you want to have certain things, you have to go elsewhere to get out and stroll and see people and shop, because that's just not the way Hampton Bays is set up. And not to get down on Hampton Bays, but it just didn't have the chance to be structured in a way that promotes that. And that's what historical concepts did when the town retained them to do a study in the pattern book. And they came up with what makes a good town, and that's part of that, which is essential, is a grid where you can create new frontages and pedestrian-friendly areas and have some on-street parking and potentially parking in the rear, but to be able to create larger sidewalk conditions where pedestrians can traverse safely and have store to store to store to store, so people can park and spend a few hours shopping and not have to get in the car and drive from here to there to there. So they looked at it and they said, well, what's our grid look like? And we said, well, basically there's a few obscure streets that cut through to good ground from Montauk Highway, but essentially there are 2 traffic lights and they're almost 2,000 feet apart. And so it's just a straight line. So they drew a grid, and I'm sure some of you have seen it, and those who haven't should take a look. It's really interesting. They looked at all the facades to all the towns, what makes a good Hampton neighborhood and so forth. But all of that said, it's all there for the seeing, and I think the pattern book that was created had a zoning that followed that had some issues that were brought up against it. It was a no, appealed, and then the appeal was dropped and started again, but now we're here and trying to pick it up from this venue.
And we're forgetting the past.
And we're forgetting the past, which is, there's a lot there, but nonetheless, this was born from me to do a beautiful town. And we found the best, I believe, architects and planners in the country to tell us what we need. Look at what historical concepts did, look at the data, and make a beautiful downtown for us. And that's what they did. There's obviously an issue that grew out of that, which is this 4-story, then it was 3, and now 2. And, there's an envelope that works with a streetscape. If you have a narrow street, the buildings need to be shorter. If it's a little wider, the street can take some taller height. What the height allows for in a 2- and 3-story undulation, which has been the crux of a lot of this debate in the past, which we will talk about, is that, I just want to bring this up, it's really important.
Yeah, I understand. But if I could just redirect a little bit, but I want to know about you.
Yes, yes.
How long have you lived out here?
How long?
Yeah.
Since steadily in my own premises with my family. My mom was there, my sister and her family are there, and we each have our own house on that big property, and we love it since 2004. And that's
How did you come to acquire the pieces of property that you've acquired to do this?
Yeah, interesting. So I was home one day, my wife went into Southampton to go get whatever she had to get there, and a friend of Greg's called me and said, I have a gentleman I want to introduce you to who has some property by the park. I said, park? What park? Oh, the park in the back off Springville. And, Squattertown, sorry. And I said, oh wow, that's amazing. I have these 2 properties and I want to buy another one. Maybe you're interested and you can see this vision. So it was actually Greg that came with the property, and I took a ride and I said, oh my God, this is incredible. This is a lost treasure. We need to, in a good way, exploit this jewel and give it to the town in some way, because it's lost. And it's since gotten some traction, but it's closed. There's access, no access. So the vision was to create this beautiful place. And that's where it was born.
So when was that, would you say, that you acquired these pieces of property? I know it was incremental. Okay.
It occurred over 2 years or so, 2 to maybe 3 max, in just targeting whatever we could acquire to get a critical mass enough to know we could do a beautiful Main Street. And we would have, a direct path to Main Street. It's approximately 650 feet of street. Both sides retail, mixed use, diagonal parking, one way each way, and wide sidewalks, and as you see in those photos. And we developed the scale, and we created that, and then we said, okay, and the park needs to have, maybe not a Santa Road, maybe a 75 Main on the corner, because it needs to be appropriate for the community and be a destination place, and maybe the other side has a Shake Shack. And then you have the park. If you look at my favorite photos, the one behind those nice people there, is in the park, enjoying the park, looking at the face of the across the street, because that street, while it's access to the park, has 100 and some odd parking spaces in it, and it is a street. And right now, it's a dead-end street. And I don't know if any of you have seen the property that aligns perpendicular from Montauk Highway to that circle. that was some property we had acquired that was infested with rubbish and homeless and garbage, and it was awful. And and so we
You cleaned that all up.
cleaned it out, left the nice trees, and made a path of mulch so you could envision what that road might look like.
So was this always your plan? Was this always, for the moment you saw this land, you were like, this has to be a bustling downtown area? Did you ever have any other idea of, oh, well, it could be something else?
No, because I wanted to be able to enjoy it myself selfishly. So,
To your knowledge, did anybody else have any other ideas about how to use this property?
Yes, one of the pieces we bought behind, and I'm so embarrassed because there's that piece that sits at the bus stop across from the movie theater that I thought would have been gone, 8 years ago, and it's still occupied. And I put my head down, but how can you put money into that? It needs to come down, right? And that's where all the garbage was behind there, and we cleared all that. But that property that the person we bought it from was Whaling. We call that road the Whaling Road now to go to the Park Circle. But he had made a deal with the town to build a big box store and give that road to the circle to the town in exchange. And that was on the table. And when we bought it, we said, oh, road to the circle? That's great. But store? No, we have a whole nother vision. And then we continued to buy the pieces, enough on Montauk Highway to have enough width to be able to create a beautiful Main Street, and then along the park to create also some retail presence, maybe a yoga studio, maybe a bakery, maybe and see if that would stick. Because one-sided retail from our professionals was told to us that it's very challenging. But if we're successful on the Main Street, we turn the corner and make that look just like that street, right? And we started out with some gallery and this and that to seed it, and hopefully it sticks. That was what we would like to see, because we want the park to be lively. But a key component of the whole concept is mixed use, and that's a little foreign to people in the suburbs. And mixed use is professional, residential, and retail. And what that does is, if you can imagine, and there are exceptions like West Hampton where there's not residential above, but the neighborhoods are quainter and they're more accessible to get to the town. It feels like they're in the neighborhood. We don't have that in Hampton Bays. Everything is spread out. There is no walk from your street to the town feeling. So we need life in town. We need mixed use, and we need housing, quite frankly. And so anyway, those were all the considerations, but the main thing was I just wanted to go and have a great cup of coffee in the morning. And I was able to acquire this property from some real estate exchanges I did that allowed me to say, I'll take a chance here.
Let me ask you, I'm going to break in here. So take a chance. That's a really good jumping off point. There's been a lot of discussion of people saying, oh, why should we build here, because it's just going to wind up like Southampton Village with all of these empty stores. Now, what makes you so certain that you can build this, that you can fill this bustling, vibrant, walkable downtown? Is it just, if you build it, they will come? Or do you have some inside track or knowledge, institutional knowledge of what is possible?
Yeah, I've derived this with just common knowledge, in the sense that, I drive up and down the neighborhoods of Hampton Bays. I come out and I get to these kinds of things, and I see people I've never seen in 40 years, and I say, there are a lot of people who would come out if we had a beautiful neighborhood to go and have an ice cream and walk to the park and listen to music, and in the little alcoves have some Fred Farmer's Market, have, a guy playing the guitar. It would just thrive. I mean, these people are starving to have a place like that. I'm starving for it.
My husband and I went out recently on a weekend, and we have Mark Caltabiano here who owns Francesca's, and at 9 o'clock on a Saturday night, what's packed in Hampton Bays? Francesca's and Carvel. And nothing else.
Touche to Mark, and
Good and bad at the same time.
Do you like that little plug, Mark?
we're grateful to people like Mark. You know, there are some gems in Hampton Bays, and don't get me wrong, I think everybody knows that, but it deserves a better environment. It deserves to, you know, not. I mean, Francesca's doesn't struggle because they have a quality product and it's lively and it's there and it's available. And it's a good price point.
I've gained a lot of weight there.
I know if I could just say real quick, not to Jack, guys, yeah, I've given Hampton Bays 110.
Hold on.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna run out here.
Thank you. Yeah. Just real quick, everyone, yeah, so basically, I'd like to add to it, it's just that giving Hampton Bays 110%, and it's giving us that back, so I feel if you invest in the community in a positive way, as Mr. Caiola was saying, everyone will respond, and just more good is gonna come out of it than anything else. So, there's always gonna be some opposition, but, yeah, you gotta really put in the work, and thank you for pushing forward with everything. We do appreciate it, and you have our full support. Right, yeah.
So, so let's talk a little bit about, let's get down and dirty about the renderings, what it is you're thinking. You know, because there has been, and I think I want to turn to the building heights, flow, numbers of stories, things like that. I know that people in the community have been concerned about those things, and I'd like you to tell us a little bit about what your concept is for this and how you see it aesthetically.
So basically, you know, to recreate the past, it's very easy to fall into a trap that makes the project look like prefab Disneyland, right? So you can't just mimic the old, you have to do it correctly. But we figured out a way to do it a little more efficiently in that if we're going to desire to have islands of contiguous storefronts, like 3 storefronts in a row, and an open space in between, and 6 storefronts in a row, and then another 20 feet in between, or 30 feet, and so forth, so that you can have side views on the retail shops and spaces in between to actually congregate and have other things and some breath around the buildings. We could do the buildings as one structure, and the facades would be created as, you know, different facades, and even floor levels could vary, but it would all be undulating, and we could do a better quality job on the front, and do it more economically as a whole structure. But it's the materials that you face and use that make it look good enough, right? And so we insist on making it look authentic and that it was built over time. That was really important to me because otherwise it looks kind of cheap. You know, no one wants to see something that was, you know. But on the other side, we have the blessing of being able to have enough critical mass and affect enough of it at one time rather than being hodgepodged by individual developers over time. So, and that was our goal. We needed to acquire enough parcels to get that critical mass, to create the street we wanted, and to have enough of a tipping point to have the vibrancy. And that's where the life comes in with the mixed use. That's super important. Super important.
So describe a little bit of how it would look. I know when we look at some of the renderings, it looks to be 2 roads that I believe you called like Main Street coming up to the park. Is that correct? Or maybe you can have
This one? Or you want the aerial?
the aerials. And it,
Sorry.
okay, and okay, hold on. I want to introduce everybody to Steve Otterman. He is Mr. Caiola's architect and planner. Let me just turn this on for you. There you go. So if you could tell us a little bit about what the plan is.
Sure, everybody can hear me. Steve Otterman, I'm with Urban Design Associates. We're out of Pittsburgh, but we work all over the country and in fact internationally. And what we learned in our 60+ years of making communities better is that you need many things to come together in a place to create that kind of critical mass and that vibrancy that I think we've heard a lot of people talk about, of creating a walkable, vibrant downtown experience in the village of Hampton Bays. So what this is showing is we're in the air, and it's an aerial view as if we were over Good Ground Park. So we're looking towards Montauk Highway. It's running here. This would be what we're calling the main street. It's a two-sided, meaning there's buildings on both sides of the street, there's shops on both sides, maybe restaurants, maybe retail, maybe services like a beauty salon, whatever, art gallery, those things, with buildings with stories above, one or more stories above other uses, whether it be professional office, residential, or who knows what. That's, I think, the mix and exactly what goes where, that's not been determined. What we're looking at is how do we create the form and look and feel so that when we're on that street, we feel good about Hampton Bays, that we feel like this belongs and it's a high quality place. So what we're showing is that retail Main Street on both sides, it's on the left-hand side, looking back towards Montauk Highway. Since we are adjacent to, the property comes right up against the edge of the park where the parking lot and drive is. So if you've all been there, you've seen the landscape is kind of growing willy-nilly. It's not park, that's the property that we're hoping to turn into something better. This would have multi-story, meaning 2 or 3 story building facing the park, so that when you're in the park, you don't feel alone. I went by there, I know it was like 4:30 this afternoon, and most people should be working, or they're off shopping or doing something else. I was looking in, and the park didn't have as much activity as it really should, given the size and the beauty of it, and there's very few kids playing. I only saw 2 people on their bikes, and it looked lost. It didn't have the kind of activity that we would have expected from such a nice premier park that your community has. So by having activity come to the edge of the park, it's what we call embracing the park. You want to embrace it. You don't want to turn your back to it. You don't want to treat it like something that's hidden away from your community. It should be something that you can get access to. And it should be a place that you can walk to from other destinations, rather than only be able to drive there down Squiretown Road. So what we're doing here is 2 things. 1, we're trying to embrace the park. 2, we're trying to create a main street that's walkable, vibrant, friendly, that has activity on it, that connects people who may be going to the other shops along Montauk Highway or across the street, feel comfortable and welcome this location, and can bring that park experience into their daily lives as well. Now, one of the things that I know Alfred was talking about, because you can see it in the aerial, is that we're talking about a downtown that has 3 dimensions, not 2. And by that I mean, currently, all of your retail activity is up and down Montauk Highway. It's a line. You have a beginning and you have an end. You have all the shops in between, and they're all off the Montauk Highway. You have to drive from one to the next. You have to park multiple times. I think Hampton Bays is at the point where you're going to begin to grow into the next step, which is actually to create some width. Have 3 dimensions, that your downtown actually goes maybe a block off of Montauk Highway, and it's connected 1 block to the next. Now, it's not unusual. Every community has done this if they've gotten to that level of maturity. You start off as a single point, a single shop on the corner of 2 country roads. That's what we probably had 100 years ago. Since then, we've grown up along Montauk Highway, and we're now at the point where it doesn't make sense to continue to grow in a linear fashion, because all you do is create traffic. Now it's time for you to grow up in the 3rd dimension, which is to actually begin to branch out 1 block off. And you are up against a premier park that really ought to be your civic green, and you should embrace it. And so whatever happens on this property, whether it be this plan or any other, needs to recognize that and needs to treat that park with respect. And it should allow people to connect to it. So connecting by walking, by biking, and by driving, so that everybody in the community can take advantage of it.
Could you talk a little bit more about that, the connecting by driving? There has been some discussion that the park should not be connected by roads to any development that is there, that the only entrance to the park by vehicle should be on Squiretown Road. What's your thought about that?
I think that's an option, but you don't wanna limit yourself to that being the only option. Because it's about how you actually program and use the park. I think it's, how do you get people there as many ways as you can, and what kind of activities would you host? I look at that parking lot and say, why don't you have antique car shows there every weekend? And if you do, you'd expect people to be walking up and down the driving aisle, looking at the cars parked in the parking spaces, right? That's what you would do at like a car show. But you need to close the street in order to do that. Well, how do you get people to go look at the classic cars if you actually close the road that takes them to see them? You have to have other ways to connect to that. So by making one or more additional connections to that parking area, you can then close off the road and hold special events there and not preclude people from being able to access it. It also would allow you to continue to have emergency services should, fire or police need to get into the area and out, they have means to do that. So I think you need flexibility in how you use that space. You might close it off at certain times for certain events. It may stay closed most of the time. You could put bollards up or whatever to control the traffic. It's not the traffic that's the issue. It's the how you use it and what do you do next to it that makes that part of the park useful to you. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think you have options and you need to keep those options open.
It absolutely does, and also, look, you're not the person to talk to about having done a traffic study, but by the same token, cars do go in and out of the park as it is from Squiretown Road, and we haven't seen a significant public safety issue with regard to that. So I'm wondering, have you thought at all about any increased public safety issue from being able to access the park by car from Montauk Highway in a different direction?
What we normally call it, there's a term out there called CPTED, CPTED. It's basically community. It's basically safety through physical design. You're safer when there's people around who can look out for you and you're looking out for them. When you don't have a way, but one way in and one way out, you're susceptible to being trapped. If you don't have people there, you're susceptible to whatever ill fortune, but nobody's there to help you. So what we do is we try to get access to those places where people want to be, whether it be Main Street or the parking lot or a park space, and allow just the physical design to create some inherent safety. In many of our projects these days, there are security cameras and the like that get installed anyways. So that's usually a basis point. But we like to design the place so that it's naturally safe, not having to need active monitoring and surveillance or police presence in order to make it feel safe. Right, so physical design takes you a long way towards that.
Well, also Christine Taylor has spoken many times about her safety concerns about the park closed off as it is now. Would you like to talk about that quickly?
Just because, there's a lot of us young mothers who go, well, somewhat young, us young mothers who go down there. And for instance, let's just say I was there with my daughter and she's 3 years old. And I'm walking through this beautiful park and we're playing and I'm the only person in the park. And all of a sudden something happens to me. And I have a 3-year-old there. And she's screaming and crying and nobody can hear her. And then she's wandering amongst this big giant park. And there's nobody there to help her. Opening the park with more people to know about the park and be aware of what's going on in the park, I feel is it's more beneficial to the community. I think people will use it more. I know for one, I don't go to the park when there's nobody else there. It's a gorgeous park, but we'll go down to Foster Park, which is in the middle of a neighborhood or something like that, just because if something were to happen, there's nobody to help. So I think opening up the park would be very beneficial. More people would patronize it. More people would come and park there and be able to go to Main Street and patronize the businesses, the shops, the restaurants. So I think it's a win-win for everyone, including the business members or the business owners on Main Street. Full disclosure, I am also the president of the Hampton Bays Chamber of Commerce. So the Hampton Bays Chamber of Commerce represents the businesses in Hampton Bays. So, you know, those businesses on Main Street, they really need people to come to them. And they're struggling. And you may go down to the hardware store, you may go to Fandango or the antique store, but the problem is you go there to go to that place, and then you get in your car and you leave. I, for one, would love to be able to go park my car somewhere, take my daughter to lunch, go to the park, go get ice cream, go to a couple shops, and walk around and put my money back into Hampton Bays, rather than going to West Hampton and supporting their community. Not that it's not good to support the other communities, but we need to support our community where we live as well.
I realize that I am remiss. We have with us today Town Board Member Tommy John Scavone. If everyone would please give him a round of applause. Tommy John, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and commune with us and hear what the community really wants. Thank you. And we also have Rick Martell. Where's Rick Martell? Thank you, Rick. So let's talk about number of stories and building heights. I know it's the bugaboo. It's the boogeyman. It's the babadook. It's the elephant in the room that hunts 300-pound gorilla.
Steve, would you pick up that part on
Yes.
drawing that shows?
Oh, 20-story
And
apartment
you-
building. Yes, that's what we wanted.
So again, we spoke about scale and size, that is enough to properly cradle a street that we believe is the proper dimension for safety and accessibility and sidewalk activity. And so the heights we feel are the proper proportions. Where we got creative is to say, well, how do we make this look more authentic and like it was built over time? And how do we break up the roof lines? And how do we change direction? Some are flat, some are sloping toward you, some slope sideways. Corner ones have a pop out and go both ways. But you have an undulation of 2 and 3 stories to, first of all, create the proper cradling and size to scale to the street. Second of all, to allow for unique, it'll look just like that in the watercolor.
So let me ask, what's going to be, okay, so the bottom is all retail and restaurant?
Yes.
Correct?
Yes. so-
Okay, and then where you have a 3-story, what's in the second and third floors? Is it all residential, or is it some of it commercial office space, or is it all a mix?
I don't honestly think that we've determined that yet. Because
Okay.
really what we're doing is we're designing the buildings from the outside in. It's completely backwards to what an architect would normally do. Normally
Welcome
we,
to Southampton.
yeah, and quite frankly, it's the better
Are
way
the
to
other
do it.
architects making fun of you?
No, but I make fun of them. What we have,
Is this the elevation that you're seeing there?
it's this portion of this building here. This is mirrored image actually of what's on that board, but that's that building. So what happens upstairs could be offices, could be residential, could be a mix of both. The buildings are set up so that they have that flexibility because, well, frankly, we haven't designed those upper levels. We don't know what's going in them. We don't know how to lay those out. We're working on what the skin of the building looks like, how the roof gets fit, how the street works, where can we put parking so that we can make it feel good, feel high quality, feel like a complete place. What happens upstairs, oftentimes, I don't know about you, but, you know, I think about when I'm sitting in a restaurant, well, what's upstairs for me? Because I'm an architect, I'm thinking about, well, is the plumbing above? What's above? Most people don't think about, I've got two apartments, or I've got an office, or I've got a fitness studio, or the yoga person is up there, or the insurance salesman is up there. You don't think about that when you're in the shops. You don't usually think about that when you're walking down the street. So I think we're focused more on, we need activity on the ground floor. That means retail, shops, could be a bank, could be a hair salon, could be a restaurant. Okay, I don't. If I had a market study, I could tell you, but we don't have one.
Yeah, no hair salons, nail salons, barber shops.
Okay.
We're done.
So frankly,
No personal, okay, got it.
if I could just jump in for a quick second, Steve is correct. It's not officially assigned at all. My inclination, transparently, is to create a residential use up top, because we need housing. We need workforce housing, we need young professionals, we need housing. It's crazy, I can't even,
Wait,
And,
hold on. I feel a moment. Let's take we're gonna take a little clapping survey. Who thinks we need more housing in Hampton Bays? About half the room.
yes, of course, there's always a component of affordable. I think it's,
Okay, now we gotta do the other side. Even-handed, here we go. So how many people think we don't need, should I say housing or affordable housing? I said housing originally. Okay, how many people don't think we don't need any more housing in Hampton Bays? Okay,
you
you
mean
were
rent,
cheating.
you mean rental housing, right? I mean, rental apartments. So where are all these rental apartments that I could go and rent right now if I needed one? Where are they? There aren't.
There are none.
I would say that justifies a need, but certainly workforce housing, affordable housing, I think that's hugely important. That creates a diverse community, and that's super important. So this is really to elevate everyone at the same time. This doesn't leave anybody out of this plan. Even the types of stores I envision, again, I said, I don't envision Santan Bros here. I envision at most 75 Main, something, or more accessible restaurants. Not that, I love all food, but I think we need to serve the community in a good way. So,
I'm just we're gonna start collecting comment cards, so we're gonna come around for your comment cards. You can go on.
So just a little prelude to something super exciting. I'll wait till the call is done. I don't want to miss this point.
Take your time. Welcome back.
Okay, we'll take just a second. Don't anybody leave.
You know what? This lady brought up a good point. She wanted to know more about my background.
Yes. Wonderful.
That's a good question. So real quick, I won't bore you. I'm the son of an immigrant who came over with $1.75 in his pocket in 1946 after the war, 1947. Moved into the south, into 107th Street in Manhattan, and lived there and always told me you had a plate of tripe and a beer for 5 cents, right? So I was like, great, try it, okay?
See.
So he started out as a laborer, a plasterer, a general contractor. Then we moved from Manhattan to the Bronx, Pelham Bay. At Pelham Bay, Crosby Avenue, Middletown Road. And my uncle Alfred, his brother, was a doctor and went around with his medical bag and house calls. They all came from a little town in Italy called San Caiola. I was born here, my other brother was born here, my oldest was born there, and I had a younger sister. I worked in the business. He took me at 12, dropped me off on a Saturday and said, you work with this guy. And I dug ditches and I did, bricklaying and carpentry and foreman and project manager. And then when things went bad, I put a suit on and did a workout at the bank, went to the office. And we've got just a family business. Never big outside stuff, just all our own stuff, really low key, really quiet. And that's in life, right? We're very low key people. And love to walk here. And I live in Manhattan now. I grew up in the Bronx and we went to Westchester. I worked in Pelham. I went to Iona Prep, a boys' school. And I owned college I went to, and business. And then I was going to either leave my girlfriend in my car and go away to college, or I was going to stay there and work in my father's business and what I love to do and keep my car and my girlfriend, so I stayed. And that's it, and here I am, 60 years old, I have 4 kids, 2 just graduated college, one's a sophomore and one's a freshman going into freshman. When I come over, I'll tell you something.
Okay, so we've got a bunch of really good questions. And I think, I really like this question. Would high density be a good term to describe your project? That is an interesting question, because we keep hearing, oh, it's a high density, it's high density, it's high density. Is it? And what does that mean to you?
To me, you know, density is relative to where it exists, in my opinion. You know, is a place unable to serve people because it's too dense, either you know, in the education system or in the downtown, you know, services and goods sector or whatever. So too dense or not too dense, to me, is relative to what you can provide for those people or not, right? And how much actual physical space they have. Now this is a downtown and it's a mixed use, and we can see mixed use downtowns thrive typically, right? That's the way they go. And you know, I think that when people say you're adding this level of density relative to a 2,500 person town versus a 14,000 and in the season 36,000 and more, and all the ones we don't know about, and everything. So we need a downtown that has 140 units in it among the streets of retail to keep it alive. That's kind of how I see it proportionally. So I don't think it's too dense relative to the community. I think it's needed. I think it's what creates the life in downtown, and we deserve it, having so many, for such a largely populated, one of the top 3 populated towns, right, in all of the Hamptons. To not have a thriving downtown is bizarre.
Planners have a real answer to that. if it would be
Okay,
helpful.
well, I just wanted to ask one other question. Okay, the person who asked this question didn't put their name on here. Who was that? I don't want to call you. Okay. What does high density mean to you?
Could be Comac, could be Shirley. It means that you have more, I don't know, concentration than the town has, the quality the town has.
So what is your concern with that? Is it that resources would be taken up, or
Moved out of here because I like low density.
where do you live now?
I live in Hampton Bays, but I grew up in Comac, which is, I would call maybe a high density suburban sprawl, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Why can't we make the buildings 2-story?
In Comac, what do the buildings look like? Can you tell me? Are they 4-story flats? But you know, I've seen suburban towns where there's 4- and 5-story flat front buildings, and that's
Well, isn't-
terrible, right?
What is it?
You know,
The American Hotel is 3 stories, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We want 4 stories?
No, where? Who said 4 stories?
Oh,
No,
no.
no, but you recognize that towns, villages like Southampton, Sag Harbor, have 3-story buildings, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then I think it's a question for us what we are willing to accept, right?
I mean, if you own the property, you can build whatever you want, right?
No.
Within reason, but
Yeah, no, you can't. But no, I'm glad that you do talk, because I think we need to flesh these ideas out and figure out what concerns people. We care about what you think.
okay.
Well, I think our planner architect, who's laughing at the other architects, has an answer for you as well.
So I'll give you the non-technical answer, and I'll try and the technical answer. The non-technical answer is, this room is too dense for the people who don't have a chair. But the room is not too dense for the people who do have a chair. Now, I actually feel comfortable in this room because of the vitality and the light that's in this room and how passionate you are about your community. And so I like being in this room, even though it's more dense than I'm really comfortable with, because I don't want to stand this long. But I want to be here anyway. So that's the non-technical answer, is density depends on what you want out of that place. Now the technical answer, density of itself is a horrible invention by planners who try to distill our cities into numbers. Right? Density is just a number, it's not actual. What people think about density is, oh, I feel overwhelmed by the size of the building, or there's more traffic here than I like, even though you're in traffic when you're driving around. You are traffic actually when you drive. You're not in traffic, you are traffic. Density is also, we don't have enough infrastructure, whether it be water or sewer or electric or schools or daycares or jobs or whatever, to support all the people that are there. Those are the true measures of density. So I think, frankly, I'll give you my personal opinion, not as a person being paid by the client. My personal opinion is the density discussion is taking you away from what's really important to you. By talking about, oh, it feels too dense, it's like, well, tell me what the symptom is that you're feeling that says, this is too much for me to handle, or I think this is not appropriate for us. So let's have a conversation about that, because that's something we can actually design around. Density unto itself as a term is not actually that helpful for, hashing out and deciding as a community what you want, and what it should look like, and how it should feel, and whether you want that or not. So now density is a proxy, right? It's one step removed from what you really want to talk about. So I'm not going to shut the density, conversation down, but think about it. It's not density as a number. I could throw out a density of 1 or 1,000,000. But if I don't tell you, well, how many units, is that 1 per acre, or is that 1,000,000 per 1,000,000 acres? What are we talking about? It's just a number. So let's talk about the effects of that and what you like and don't like about it. That's my advice.
Yes, Christine?
I just want to put something in perspective too for people, because 100 is, how many is it, Alfred?
I mean, when I said 145, the affordable guy said, that's it.
Okay.
So I was like, wait a minute, how many do you need?
Okay, so for something like that, you have to think about it. There's going to be 1 unit, 1-bedroom units, 2-bedroom units, maybe some 3-bedroom units. You have to think about that. There's probably going to be some units that have 2 people. There's going to be some units that have 4 people. On an average, let's just say there's 3 to 4 people per unit. Roughly, you're going to be somewhere around 600 people. If it's on the lower side, you'll be more like around 435. If you're on the upper side, you'll be just under 600. And the reason we need to think about that is because that's not a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, if you think about that in an aspect, and just, not to get on a separate subject, but we have an ADUs that are allowed in Hampton Bays. I think, do you know how many properties there are, Paula, that are allowed to do that? Does anybody know? Tommy John, do you know?
Offhand, no.
Okay, I think it's a couple thousand though that would qualify for that with their lot sizes, is that correct?
I would have to take a look at the exact numbers, but you have to be around 3/4 of an acre to actually qualify to put an ADU because of the density standard that we have on our zoning code
Right.
for an ADU.
So the ADU stands for accessory dwelling unit, which means if you have a home and you have a property size that qualifies for it, you could put an additional dwelling on your property, which you could be labeled affordable housing, and then your family or somebody could move in and have an affordable housing rate. The thing is all these people are gonna be up on Main Street, where they're gonna be monitored by code enforcement. We're gonna know what they're doing because we're literally in their backyard. The thing is all these properties that are gonna be in people's backyards, it's hard for us to monitor. I mean, code enforcement is overwhelmed as it is at this point, and we don't know how many people are gonna be living in there. And when you think about that, some of the people are gonna be coming from the city on the weekends, they're leaving their cars out here, they're coming in by the train, and then they're going around the town. It's not gonna be a lot of people who are gonna be putting children in the schools. Even though you're on a beautiful park, people a lot of times, they want a yard for their children, or they want something different. It's gonna probably be workhouse housing, young professionals, people coming out from the city, versus people who are gonna say, some people like Margaret, maybe like, I'm selling my house and moving it. But the point being is that it's a couple hundred people. So I think we need to think of that versus a couple thousand people that could be in the ADUs.
Okay, I'm just going through some of these, and there are some that we can just deal with right away. There's a lot of talk about parking, so, the drawings don't really show parking very well. What are the plans for parking on the properties?
So there's parking for different uses, obviously. If you're a patron going to a shop, there'll be on-street parking on the main street, diagonal, such as you've seen in a lot of other places. But that's not gonna be enough. The city zoning code requires that we provide more than what we can put on the street. So there would be additional parking and parking lots behind the businesses. Now, if there were residential or office uses, we need to have spaces for them as well. So those would either also go into surface lots behind the buildings, or in some cases, we're looking to say, well, can we put it underneath? You know, where you drive into the basement, so that the parking's not taking up the street. So like if a resident or an office worker, like they had a dedicated space, secured, protected way for them to get to and from their use, their unit, whatever it may be. There's that as an option. There's sometimes what we do is called tuck under. It's basically, it'd be a garage space covered in the first floor of the building. In the retail setting, that would mean a shop in the front, and then behind the shop, behind the kitchen or whatever, there'd be parking spaces, but it'd be under the building. We're trying to let me put it this way. If we provided all the parking that we needed only on street or in the parking lot, we wouldn't have any buildings, and we just basically have what you have today. So we have to find innovative ways to add parking in order to get more uses here.
Okay, I have a question here about what's going to, Mary Catherine Stephan asks, what's going to happen with the existing Main Street? Will it be fixed up to be cohesive with the new Main Street? Well, the existing Montauk Highway businesses and buildings are all owned by individual people. And there have been incentive programs for them to upgrade their facades, but I think the common idea is that by improving this area, you encourage people to improve other areas, and you put a little bit of market forces at work, competition, and by virtue of that, you expect a domino effect in terms of upgrading the rest of Montauk Highway. And I think, it probably behooves our town government to look for innovative ways to encourage current landowners on Montauk Highway to improve their facades.
If I could just add to that, there are certain pieces of Montauk Highway coming through town that lend themselves to looking more like what we want to do, which would have a wider sidewalk, etc. But it wouldn't apply to buildings, at least in the short term, like where Scotto's is all the way to the corner. But the other way, where there are large lots, if anyone were to develop that, they could do a 16-foot sidewalk setback and parking in the rear, as would be more conducive to that store-to-store kind of a setup, even on Montauk Highway, if you had nicer sidewalks, right? The parking and the width of the street on Montauk Highway is never going to change, so the town will have to look at a lot or here or there to purchase for people to park in. That's another thing we'll discuss with the town as well, give them some focus on that. So.
We have a question from Maureen Steigerwald. Is there any possibility that plans can incorporate the idea of the diner property becoming a well-paying place? Well, my understanding is, right now, from what I've learned, is that the diner is in the process of getting the approvals needed for its demolition. That property has already been purchased and is going to be I believe, Tom, John, am I correct, is Swanger Hasiri? A radiology building, and it's going to be set much further back into the property to provide us with a nice green space as you enter into Hampton Bays. So we're looking forward to that diner eyesore to be gone. Now, if we do need a diner, right? Now, if remember the old Friendly's property? Wouldn't it be great if someone put a diner in the old Friendly's property? If you know anyone who's interested in restaurants, start making phone calls. How many apartments are you considering? You can answer that right now, I would presume.
I mean, we don't really have a plan other than this speculative one, but like I said, it's in about the 145 range.
As many
on that
apartments
one.
as you can see in the pictures. So, will the rents for the office-based retail, et cetera, be affordable and rents not raised? We don't want empty storefronts. That is Lena Romagnoli, right? Did I pronounce your name correctly? Thank you. So let's talk about that. Affordable housing, workforce housing. Is there any plan for potentially calibrating retail space rents?
You know, it's hard to say. What I did plan on doing though was to help them consult to create the spaces, right? Not just give them a white box and say, hey, do whatever you want, but say, what's your plan? What would you like to do? And where would you fit best on the block? You know, and maybe you like that store instead of this store. And, you know, what's it gonna look like? And your signage, you know, we're gonna make sure that people have the right information and guidance to create nice stores. So that's really what.
And that's quite an incentive to a national business is because I had to completely renovate my office and it was extremely expensive. So when we talk about affordable housing, we are talking about what is considered a community benefit. And we build the town will build community benefits into planning projects in order to push them through. Would you consider creating as a community benefit a cultural arts space for the community or a community center? How about a new library?
I mean, I'd love
Wait,
to.
are we laughing at that?
You know, I would be open to championing an effort, but I don't think this project covers anything like that. But in terms of helping to, you know, promote and raise something, I'd be open to be a part of that.
Wonderful. Talked about parking. We talked about what's happening to the existing businesses. Let's see, Sarah Dowd would like to see some gambrel roof lines. It's a popular style through local history. Best of luck. She has your support.
If, pay attention to what's in the pattern book, because that's kind of the architectural guide that we would be needing to follow. So certainly if it's in there, we can work with it. It makes sense. I don't see why not.
What other developments have you completed of note that people could look at and say, and compare what you plan to do here with what you've done in the past?
Well, I mean, you know, the majority of my experience has been with mixed-use retail with residential above, mostly not in suburban areas, but clearly, you know, I know who is the specialist for certain types of jobs, whether it be industrial, you know, hotel, straight residential, retail, office, and so I got the best professional to help me to design and master plan a really good project in terms of project management and execution and quality. That's my forte. You know, I don't profess to be an architect, although I've learned a lot over these years. So that's my team.
And what do you think the possible timeline could be? I understand there's all kinds of governmental approvals and the planning process, which could take forever.
Well, the critical path clearly is the town's initiative on the wastewater treatment plant. Without that, nothing gets built, right? And that timeline is the critical path. So that's a hard one to say. You know, they say it could take 5 years, it could take 2 years. So, you know, probably it's a 2 to 3 year thing, maybe. So that's kind of the timeline, and we're working under that. You know, we had a zoning at one point that we kind of used as a guide, but try to move the ball along in a way that benefits everyone.
Wonderful. Okay, we're at 8:25. I'd like to take an opportunity to talk to you all about how you feel about what you've seen here tonight. I'd like to hear directly from you. So, would anybody like to, let's talk about 2-story buildings, 2.5-story buildings, 3-story buildings. Who's got an opinion? Nobody? Well, we're gonna start with this young lady right here. She's lovely.
I like the 2-story, I don't have a 3, but it reminded me of Pebbles Village, if anybody's been out in the Lancaster, where they did stores on the ground floor. Granted, not a flat surface, they had hills, parks in between, and there was a hotel in town that would rent rooms over the stores. So it was used like as an inn, and they always told you don't stay in the hotel because the band goes late at night. The stores close at 9 and you're quiet in your rooms over the stores. And then they would have acts going on in the street and so forth, always entertaining.
But they have 2-story buildings?
2-story.
And you like that?
I did.
So why don't you like the 3?
The looks of it is too.
What if we had 2, 2.5, and 3? Just mix it up. You like
I'm not
mix it up?
crazy about 3.
Okay, 2.5?
Who's gonna go to the half story?
I'm a litigator, this is what we do. Okay, so you're a 2. You're a 2. What-
Yeah, so if you're limited to 2 stories, you don't have as much flexibility to create a nicer roof line, which really makes it for an ugly horizon line on the top.
Okay, Stephanie?
Honestly, I just want my friends to move back here, so 3 stories, 2 stories, whatever gets them here, affordable housing. Besides this cute little young lady over here, I think I'm one of the youngest in the room, and there's a reason for that. My friends moved away, whether there's nothing to do, they can't afford it, they're bored in the winter. If we have a vibrant downtown, I don't really care what it looks like, as long as it's cute and fun, and my generation and probably your kids' generations can live here and have a great time. And afford to stay.
Okay, we're heading over to Geraldine Spinelli.
Well, my opinion is that you can't have everything the same level, because then you'll look like Levittown. I think that having all the different roof lines and the different designs on the fronts of the buildings, so that it looks really interesting, and you're going into, if anyone's ever been to Old Williamsburg, you know what I'm saying. You can have 3-story buildings, 2-story buildings, it just looks great. You just need to have a lot of interesting activities, music, restaurants. I would love an art museum. Look at all the great art in this room. It could be in a museum. So it's just, there's so much that you have to think about. This whole project is a big plus to Hampton Bays. I think everyone in this room is here because they're encouraged. They think it would be nice to have something lively and new in our community. And if we don't get a sewer system, God knows when it's gonna start. So maybe we could ask Tommy John if he happens to hear anything underground that the town board's discussing.
We are working on it, and we are working on siting in here, to the west of Red Creek Park and the highway barn in there.
Wonderful. We have Susan Bonfredi here from the Hampton Bays Beautification Society.
Thank you, everybody. I'm in the real estate business, and I have to tell you, there is not one empty, vacant office in Hampton Bays. There are none. Every store that on King Collins Shopping Center, upstairs, every single office is vacant. Every single building in Hampton Bays has somebody upstairs. There's either an office, or some of them have apartments. And there really isn't any place for anybody to go. So we need that inventory for people. Now, what I'm seeing is people from Sag Harbor and East Hampton can't take it anymore. They can't take the trade parade. They're moving their businesses to Hampton Bays. So I think we have an opportunity, if we can get this thing built, that we all love Sag Harbor, we all love East Hampton, we all love Greenport. They all have 3-story buildings, 2-story buildings, and they are doing fantastic. So I think we can do it better, and I appreciate, Alfred, that you're willing to take on this massive project. And my only question to you is, what kind of, are you gonna build it all at once, or are you gonna do phases?
I mean, when money was 0 7 years ago, when I started,
Use your microphone.
I probably would have done it all at one time. But I think, and even more to the point, if there, is any housing, on the park buildings, I would do that later. I mean, I think the real thing is to get the Main Street done, to get that mixed use. And, to this gentleman, and I feel for you, because I know you're concerned in some way, and I wanna help you to feel better about it. And I think what I can say is that we're really paying a lot of attention to not lose the charm. And I don't think you'll be trampled on, and I don't think we'll lose the charm. So hopefully that part, because I think the charm is the most important part for me. I want it to read right, feel right, flow right, be safe, be fun, and have lots to do. So I think it'll be an asset in the end. I hope you'll be happy if we can get this done.
Now, this young lady, I saw shaking her head. I'm gonna put you on the spot. What do you think? You were nodding along with Ms. Manfredi. What was she saying about what we need? But I don't know if it was a yes, I agree, or. Well, okay, let's put that aside. What are you thinking? I care about what you're thinking.
I went to the meeting at the school that night, at the gymnasium, at the auditorium at the school. And it was packed. You weren't there, but you were on the Zoom or something. Oh, they said you couldn't make it.
No, the city's right there.
They showed videos of all these wonderful villages, to make us envious or what? And they named them all. One woman, I don't know if she's here tonight, she did her homework. She took the microphone and said, she did all the figures, and she said Hampton Bays is more dense than all those other villages going out east. More dense already.
That's because we
So
love
now
it.
we're talking about density. We already have density here, so another thing, when you build affordable housing, who's involved in that? The state, the county, the federal government? If you take money from any of them, who tells us who to rent it to?
We have an affordable housing.
Yeah. But
If grant money is involved,
from where?
from wherever, but you're not mentioning.
We met that gentleman that time who was a director or something like that.
Yes, Curtis Highsmith,
Yeah,
with the
so
Housing Authority.
we
It
would
would be the
talk
town
to
of
him.
Southampton Housing Authority.
Yeah, I know that, yes. But when you do affordable housing, it's my understanding that the county, the state, and the federal government are involved.
Not necessarily. If you take grant money, yes.
John, if you'd like.
Yes, I would love Tommy
An
Johnson
explanation on
to explain this.
Sure, what you're referring to is the Fair Housing Act, and if public monies, state monies, or federal monies are utilized, then it has to be open to the entire state. What we have found is that when we do these initiatives, that people from the eastern end of Long Island are the ones who actually apply to be here, or people who want to work here. So if there is monies for an affordable housing initiative or community housing initiative, then yes, there would be people from all over who would qualify for the lottery. And what we do in the town of Southampton is we have a qualified lottery. We farm it out to another company. The town doesn't do this, and they qualify people, and we choose their names out of the hat. And then we go into a rather extensive process to see if they can actually afford it. Because community housing, when you're looking at 80% AMI, that's considered affordable or community housing. That's $84,000 a year. You know, that's someone who works for our highway department for 15 years. You know, I mean, you know, so these are the kinds of folks that I believe, you know, we want to keep in our communities. So essentially you are right. And, you know, that yes, people can come from anywhere. But what we find, by and large, and overwhelmingly, is that people who do move into the initiatives that we have, the few, Beyond Commons and Tuckahoe, they came from Southampton Town, East Hampton, and Brookhaven. So that's what has happened. So, thank you.
And another thing I would add about the density issue is, yes, we are dense, but what do we have that other areas that the town of Southampton don't have?
Oh, I personally think we have nicer
No. Wonderful, yes. We have smaller lot sizes. We have smaller, right, but we have smaller lot sizes. Further east, there are large lots with huge mansions, and yet they still have the trade parade. But why is that? Because of all the people they need to bring in, all the landscapers, all the people to do all the work. And I used to live in Sag Harbor. I lived in Sag Harbor for 10 years. I left in 2022, and I was very glad to leave in 2022. And the reason we did it was because I had my office here in Hampton Bays and wanted to be closer where I work. And after we finished unpacking a full day, we left the house and went to Francesca's. And we got a parking space and sat down and got a table on a Saturday night at 8 o'clock. And we were able to eat our food and go home in peace. And so even though we are a denser hamlet of the town of Southampton, it doesn't necessarily equate to extra traffic. And that's what I've learned. That's my 2 cents. No, I know.
But what I'm saying is the pictures shown at that school meeting, the auditorium meeting that night, it was almost like we should be envious of all of these villages out east.
The way they look, yes.
Because their streets are wide, their streets are wide. You can't push our buildings back. I mean,
Right, but what Mr. Caiola is proposing is to develop attractive land between Montauk Highway and Good Crown Park, which would allow for the development of streets with wide sidewalks, so that we could have outdoor cafes and walking traffic and people, musicians on the street, and all the things that we talked about tonight. So I really appreciate your comments. I thank you so much for chiming in, because some people would not feel comfortable doing that, but we need to hear from everybody.
no, I don't feel uncomfortable doing it, but I'm sitting here doing it like it's not right.
Exactly. Right?
I still say that those pictures that they showed that night really kind of got to me, except whoever that woman was that did my homework, had all the statistics for all of these townships out there that we were supposed to be envious of because they had nice public streets and they didn't have to project it. And then Lars said something about, what about the school buses? Anybody else figured out, we're gonna have all these apartments here, we're gonna have children. Where does a school bus let them off?
I want you to go onto our YouTube channel, and I want you to watch our video called What Will It Cost? Lars Clemenson sat up here that night, and he talked about what would happen if, and how it would affect our schools, and how it would affect our taxes. And there's a really good conversation about that.
That's a different one, that's the density of the schools and the system. But he brought up an issue about the school bus. So where do you, letting children off or picking children up in the morning, where do you put a school bus in this plan?
Well, that would be something that would be worked out in planning. Absolutely. Okay, we have a little more time. I'm gonna move on. I have a, okay.
I didn't take this.
Okay, okay, gentlemen.
Yes, I was wondering, to help abate the traffic on Montauk Highway with this project, I wonder if we could build a traffic circle in a couple of street accesses on Montauk Highway.
I'll tell you, I'd love to see a traffic circle at the diner and at the canal. That's what I'd like to see.
Yes.
The question was, in order to help the traffic flow out of this, project, wouldn't traffic circles assist in moving the traffic there? Or would the alternative be everything's going to flow through Good Ground Park?
No, not at all. And as Steve said, and if you'd like, I could show you the drawing again.
No, I'm just asking a question.
Yeah, sure. So
Literally was just getting that very same question from a lovely lady. So, are you telling me that you have to drive into the main street? Where do you go from there? Well, we're considering what the city has in its planning documents as well, is that you need an internal street so that somebody can come in, like go down Main Street, run along parallel to the park, and then back out onto Montauk Highway. Then we would get
How do you
to.
go east?
Pardon?
We have
How
Good
do you
Ground
go
Road,
east?
and if they put a street in back of the diner that connects to Good Ground Road, that would alleviate some of that.
Hold on, everyone, hold on. Ma'am, please, ma'am, we need to move on, please.
If you're coming out of this project and you want to go east, how do you do that?
So I think what we're trying to accomplish is that you can loop through the site and back out onto Montauk Highway.
Yeah, but then you can only go west.
yes, because, can I jump in?
Yes, please.
So the new Main Street that we propose, where we said we have a traffic light at, the movie theater on Springville and one on, Ponquag Squiretown, that's 2,000 feet. So our Main Street sits right about in the middle of that. And we propose that we consider another traffic light in the middle of that street. So, and then you'd have the Main Street going into the park. You'd have the ability to turn before the Main Street and go to the alternate road that connects to the circle in the park to Montauk Highway. So, and if you wanted to drop people over the park, you could actually, and that road would only be right turn in, right turn out, that road. But the light would be both ways.
Would there be
I'm
sorry.
If I could, we move on?
businesses, facing the park?
Well, yeah, so, of course.
Alfred, if we could wrap it up. Thank you, sir. I thank you for your question. Okay.
Happy to talk to you.
Just a quick question. Are we talking any higher than 3 stories?
No.
Thank you.
And hold on, follow up. So how does that make you feel?
Well, that makes me feel good. I like the different roof lines and everything else, but, you know, I sit in traffic here all the time. We get the trade parade and everything, and, you know, you come into town now, you can't even get a parking spot. You know, you've got to park, well, you know, even to park at the library here tonight, there's no spot.
Exactly, so it'd be nice to see some additional parking that could alleviate that. And how do you feel about traffic circles? That would be great, right?
That'd be fine, yeah, I think, by the canal, there is their own traffic circles. Off Newtown Road, well, that.
Okay, well, it's 8:45. I think we should wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
See you at Francesco, everyone.
Have a good night. Get home safe. Thank you. And please, take some pastries. Take some pastries with you because we're not going to be able to do it